you can collect £7,500 of rent every year without paying any tax on it.
The last thing I want to ask you is about we're talking here about short form lettings, and do you feel that there is a problem with the lack of regulation of some of these platforms where people can rent out their homes or a room in a short space, and perhaps don't have to go through the same kind of regulatory hurdles that a longer term landlord would go
Well,
through?
if I was a hotelier, Duncan, for example, I would launch into a big rant now about how they don't have to go through the same checks and this, that, and the other that a hotel does. But realistically, short lets and hotels, they obviously do compete, but generally speaking, short lets have an edge where multiple people want to share the same dwelling for more than one night because you can't accommodate that in a hotel or it doesn't necessarily work very well. If we're on the other side of the fence and we were Airbnb board advisors or whatever, I'm sure we'd be saying, look, less regulation than possible. You want people to bring in money. Remember, the government actually actively incentivizes a rent a room scheme in your house, but you can collect £7,500 of rent every year without paying any tax on it. So the government is aware that there's 10 million plus empty bedrooms in the UK every night and is actively trying to encourage some of that to go on. So the balance, as it usually is, lies somewhere between those two poles, realistically. Are people safe and are they fully insured when they go into Airbnb or whatever? It has to be the job of the platform to ensure that the compliance and that is in place. I see short let more as a vehicle for when large infrastructure projects are taking place, contractors who are going to be not necessarily so short-term lets. They might be over 28 days. That helps with things like VAT if you're doing this on a regular basis. So I do operate a handful of them in areas where there are big infrastructure projects going on, things like Hinkley Point, things like the Tees Valley regeneration project that we've talked about before. So I won't go into it now, but there was opportunity there for a couple of short lets in a location that tourists definitely wouldn't have visited, Duncan. But we had all sorts of people in there who were staying in the country on a 3-month contract or a 6-month work contract, wanted somewhere. They didn't want to stay in a Premier Inn or whatever. They wanted their own space, their own desk, their own bed, their own lounge, their own all of that sort of stuff, and somewhere they could lock up and feel safe at night as well.